Hello everyone watching this video. This is to give a little advice on users of Peugeot V6 engines, specifically the ES engines, especially the ES9J4S and ES9A. You have to be mindful of the sensors that are behind the engine, or at least behind the intake manifold. Of course, this is the intake manifold. So whenever you are doing any work on this engine that has to do with removing the manifold, removing the engine, or anything that will make you disconnect either of the map sensor directly behind, which is here. I don't know if you can see the connector. This is the connector here. Or the oxygen sensor. There are two oxygen sensor connectors here. The upstream and downstream is somewhere here. This is the downstream. This blue one. Let me see if I can show you guys. So whenever you're changing any of that, you have to disconnect any of these. Make sure when you are done that you arrange those wires or connectors so that they don't hang or be touching the drive shaft, CV joint, steering rack, wheel, or resting on the exhaust. Because what tends to happen is, oftentimes, at least I know 3 people, if not 4, this has happened to. Where probably they took their vehicle somewhere, someone did some job, and did not arrange those harnesses properly, or the connectors properly. So when the car now started moving, kilometers later, days later, the connectors, are you trying to tell us good morning? So when they eventually get the point, if they are running on the drive shaft, you start to eat up the wires. Or if they rest on the exhaust, after time it will burn the connectors or the wires or the harness. These sensors I mentioned, the map sensor, the oxygen sensors, about 1 or 2 of these wires are directly connected to the engine ECU. So what will now happen is, for example, for the oxygen sensor, let's assume with the upstream. Let me show you the upstream oxygen sensors. So this is the connector for the upstream. This is the harness from the engine wire. This is the engine wire harness part of the connector that goes to the sensor. Now this is the one that is from the sensor. You see this black wire here. You can see there's black, then is it brown? Then followed by 2 white wires under. But you see this black one on top here. This one, if it touches with any of those white wires, if it touches with any of those 3 wires under it, for whatever reason, or it touches the engine block or rests on any other thing that thing touches, it's going to damage your engine ECU. To blow it. Engine might still start and run, but trust me, you wouldn't want that experience. Likewise, the map sensor. The map sensor is actually behind the attached on the intake manifold, but behind. So I can disconnect it, but don't want to mess with it. But look out for what map sensor looks like for the 407 V6, 406 V6, 607 V6, at least with petrol engine, then you understand what I'm talking about. If that connector for some reason fails off and rests on the exhaust, because there's exhaust behind it, catalyst is there, exhaust manifold is there, even though it may have a heat shield, but then it can still go beyond the heat shield. If it touches that place and burns it, which most likely when it's doing that, it's going to melt and all the wires or connectors will join together. and start touching positive, negative, everything will start. If that happens, same thing will happen to your engine ECU. What will now happen is you start having issue. Engine will not stop running. Engine can still start, but it will no longer run properly. So I'll give you instances. Let me start with one. There was this 407 V6 I bought for someone. Actually, we went together, I inspected it and certified the vehicle, made the purchase. The vehicle, I think, I can't remember what happened. It was like a year, 2 or 3 years later or so. Some work had been done on the car, probably by other people or thereabouts. I was driving on the expressway, all of a sudden, boom, the car went off. They couldn't start the vehicle. It was on the expressway. I had to drive to that particular spot where the car was. And eventually, the diagnosis now led to one of the oxygen sensors behind. And I checked the fuse box and I realized that one of them was blown. So I was like, what could have made the oxygen sensor to blow the fuse box, the fuse on the fuse box? So before I even put another fuse, I was like, okay, I need to find out what happened. And then what fuse was that? So it now happened that the fuse also has something to do with the engine ECU, the fuse that got blown. But then it was pointing at both the oxygen sensor and the engine ECU and whatever. So I was like, okay, I need to inspect the sensor connector to know what happened behind, because it was one of the ones behind it. It was at that moment I now saw that the connector was pulled down completely. The thing was resting on the drive shaft. So as the drive shaft was spinning, it now drew it and pushed it down. In fact, I don't even know how to go about it. So we now have to even remove the tires. From there, I now saw the sensor, the wire have already been eaten up. So it kind of, the drive shaft scraped the wires, pull it down. Even though it was still connected, but they started touching that signal wire, that black one I mentioned earlier on the osmosis sensor, started touching the drive shaft, which at that moment has become a ground. So he now blew the fuse. Luckily for him, he blew only the fuse. It didn't affect the engine ECU. So I changed the fuse, went away, pulled the wire up, reconnected it, and taped it so that I separated it so that they wouldn't touch each other. And that's how the car was able to start and move away from there. Another circumstance that happened was 407 V6 as well. This happened some years back, 2014 or thereabout, or 2013, I can't remember the exact year, either 14 or 15. This map sensor, he purchased the vehicle. I think in that condition, he didn't know. I wasn't involved in the purchase. So the fuel consumption kept, he didn't actually mind about the fuel consumption per se, but then I drove the car, I could tell the consumption was high. Something was wrong, because in as much as 407 V6 petrol engine consumes higher than the 4-cylinder, but it shouldn't be that high. The one when I drove the car, his was extremely higher. The diagnosis led to the map sensor communication issue. So when I now checked, I realized the map sensor connector was resting on the exhaust and had burnt, and they joined together and everything. So, well, I pulled up the maps connector. I was able to reconnect it. It has 4 wires there, if I'm not mistaken. Reconnected it. Immediately I plugged it back, boom, the car, it started, but entered limp mode. I checked the connection, make sure, use the wiring schematics, checked everything, use another 407 V6, confirmed that I did the right connection. The connection I did was correct. There was nothing wrong with the connection I did to because I had to change it. There was no longer connector on it, so I had to put another one. So it was correct, but what happened was when that thing got burnt and all the four wires joined together, it has affected the part in the engine ECU that works with the map sensor. So even when you change the map sensor, put everything, it's still, once you connect the map sensor, boom, limp mode, the car will no longer accelerate. It will start but it won't accelerate. If you disconnect it, it will start accelerating. So it's already affected the engine ECU, dead. Well, in that case, you can use the car as long as you do not connect the engine ECU. So you have to, in that case, there are only two options: keep driving the car even though the consumption will go high, or you change the engine ECU and reconnect the sensor. Now these are, that's two. Now another case, this was a 807 V6 ES9J4S. Now the owner, I think he removed the catalyst, the pre-catalyst on this, I can't remember. But he now, or maybe he just wanted engine ECU to stop reporting catalyst faults. So that because the downstream oscillating sensor is very monitoring, even when the catalyst might be okay, but sometimes it might tell catalyst. I can't remember the reason, but what he bought one device or two devices that somebody claimed online that if you connect it to the connector of the map sensor before now connecting to the map sensor, it's going to fool your engine ECU to think that your car has catalyst. I think he removed catalyst, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was what happened. So he now put something to make the engine ECU think that there is still catalyst. So it's like it's actually a device, an electronic device. Has is it diode or I can't remember. This was years ago, maybe 2015 or so. So after he did that, he immediately started the vehicle. Boom, the car started, but no longer accelerating. Didn't matter what you do, you will not accelerate. Until I had to now diagnose the car. And that's how it came to the cause has nothing to do with the throttle body or accelerator pedal sensor, but the oxygen sensor. So I was like, how could oxygen sensor make a car not to accelerate? So I now went to the sensor and I saw what he did there. So even though I've already disconnected it, I called everything back, put it back, the factory connection, the harm was already done on the engine ECU. So eventually, luckily for him, he took the engine ECU for a repair and saw what was damaged in it. They changed it, put it back, it started working. That's the third example. Now the fourth one. So this one happened recently, a 406 V6 with this engine ES9J4S. So I don't know where he took the vehicle. The owner took the vehicle and they did some work, and they did not arrange this properly, these connectors, so that they're supposed to fix them behind here, but they tend to break sometimes when you are removing them. So you have to arrange it in such a way that they don't rest on anything behind, whether on the drive shaft or the exhaust or anything. So it wasn't properly done. So according to the owner, he was in a journey and the car started acting up, or he has already got it to the destination, started acting up, started blowing out black smoke, engine was running roughly, the car refused to accelerate. It will start, but it will just not accelerate, black smoke. So when he was saying that, I was like, it can't be throttle body, because he was suspecting the throttle. I say it cannot. Throttle body, yeah, can fail, but the black smoke symptom, no. It will not give you black smoke symptom at all, as far as throttle body is concerned. Unless even when there is vacuum leak, it will even be as that bad from what he was describing. So I told him you have to find someone to diagnose that car there. I'm talking about starting with scan. They called the person came and but said, oh, oxygen sensors, the way it was reporting, oxygen sensors all of them were bad. And it seems it has affected the engine ECU. So I said, okay. He didn't inform me on time. I think it was after they've done taking a decision. I said, okay, fine. If you are changing the engine ECU because it's affecting it, or you are going to do whatever, maybe fix it, before you do mount whatever ECU you are mounting back on the car, whether the previous repaired one or another one, make sure you go and check the wiring harness of that car. Something blew the ECU. ECU not just all of a sudden just fail. Something blew it. Most likely will be the wiring harness. Maybe one of the wires on the engine has breached somewhere, is touching somewhere. Work with your scan report. It's trying to tell you something. Check your engine wiring harness to be sure there's no breach or issue, something touching. My advice was not adhered to. They went ahead and mounted another ECU, repaired the other one, and left it like that. The one they mounted started working. I think about a day later or so, on their way, the car on its way back to Abuja, it failed. Just like the previous one failed again. I think that one said we won't go once. The car refused to start or something. You now had to pull back the one they repaired, which they continued, but by the time I got to Abuja, it became worse. Same issue happened to it. They now brought the car to me. Diagnosis still led to the oxygen sensor as the cause. So what I did, I now said, okay, fine. If you are listening to my advice before, what happened to these two ECU wouldn't have happened. So I went straight to the oxygen sensor, the one he was pointing at, which was downstream oxygen sensor, the bank 2. Inspected to inspect the connector or the sensor, and there it was. The part that the one from the engine wire harness was resting on the exhaust and melted. It has melted. So the 4 wires there were already joined, squeezed together. So that signal wire was already running with both positive and positive, negative, everything set to the ECU. So it kept burning those almost 3 times. It burned ECU 3 times. So I now had to separate it. Eventually change the ECU. Well, so far, he hasn't complained again. So take this my advice. Whenever you do any work on this engine, if you own a Peugeot car, it doesn't matter which vehicle, 406, 407, 607, 807, whatever model, always make sure that all the wires that have to go to the back of this intake manifold are properly arranged, and make sure that they are arranged in such a way that it cannot, none of them will rest on the exhaust, rest on the drive shaft, or any other thing that could cause burn or wear the wire or draw the wire down. Like I said, they are meant to be hanged here for the oxygen sensor, but I know eventually when you want to remove them, they tend to break. Those things that are holding them up here, this iron or bar. So you now have to find a way. You can see how I kind of remove it. I put it such a way like this so that it can never drop. This thing will now hold it. Likewise, the map sensor, always make sure you put your hand back, make sure it's connected, and run your hand through it to be sure it's not resting on any place. Actually, on the intake manifold, there's a position where they make the wire is supposed to sit on, so it doesn't drop down on the exhaust manifold or heat shield, whatever. Also, don't take this one in the front for granted as well. So this video is peculiar to this ES engines model, ES9J4S, ES9A. Now the ES9J4, I know the oxygen sensor is just one oxygen sensor, the upstream. You may not worry so much about that. I can't remember where the wire passed to, since the catalytic converter is down there. So it may not necessarily, but you just make sure it doesn't rest on the exhaust, the wires. It doesn't also rest on the gear. If yours is whether manual or automatic transmission, it doesn't rest on the gear cables or on the part of the gear where, as you are shifting, it's moving, because that can also cause this kind of damage. So hope that helps. Or if you have any Peugeot car that have this kind of similar arrangement of wires, always make sure you adhere to all this. When they do any work, before you start the vehicle, check. If you're a technician, before you start the vehicle, after doing work that has to do with all those spaces, check to be sure it's not it will not cause this kind of issue for your customer, your client, or even your own personal car. So I do whenever I'm working, that's always something I do, because like most people don't know, I'm also a user, not one, not two, of this engine. So I know exactly some of the don'ts, so try not to be in that situation, and always take advice from someone that understands that thing better than you do, because sometimes people don't. Like that last one, if I've taken my advice, it wouldn't have happened. The first one happened, yes, fine, but that second one, the third one wouldn't have happened. If you are listening to me, that they check the wiring harness very well, insist they do that before you mount another ECU. Otherwise, the same thing will happen. Because they assume that ECU can just fail like that. No, cannot. They don't. At least like that. 1986 505 V6 ECU is still there running. So if it hasn't failed, you are talking about modern ones. So I hope this makes sense. So like my video, subscribe to this channel for information like this, which you will benefit from. And we'll see you guys in the next video.